For a long time, I couldn't get the guys out here to play my originals. I wrote rockabilly tunes, Beatlesque stuff, three-chord progressions, stuff that sounds like I was writing this stuff in the '70s. It sounded like it was coming in from the '40s and '50s. Not even the '60s. It didn't even have the. Then I wrote a bunch that if you look up Hollywood Joe, you'll see a million songs out there. But the thing is, I would ask him. I say, man, if you stay out here, you could play guitar with me. He would like a song that I wrote, "The Girl Who I'm in Love With," which has as many chord changes in it in the verse and the bridge as Cherokee does, or I Got Rhythm. And these people out here wouldn't get on it. They wouldn't be able to handle it. They were good with three chords in the verse, three chords in the bridge, and that's it. I said, no, man, we got six chords in the front and 12 chords in the bridge, and forget it. So he would come in and he would play like these songs I wrote, "The Girl Who I'm in Love With," "Hello December," where have all the good times gone? You could tell by their titles; they're very standard. They come from the changes of yesteryear, but it's my original take on it. And he would memorize these things. I'd say E, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, B seventh, but the bridge is going to go E seventh to A flat minor, F sharp minor, B seventh, and he would remember it because he already had schooled himself to know more than 3 and 3 chords. I call it the 3 and 3 pack. 3 chords verse, 3 chords bridge, and then it's Buddy Holly all night. That's great, but after a while. So when he was here, I was very sad that he was leaving. I said, I finally found a guy that can remember the changes. Even if we wrote it down on the ground, threw it on the floor, he'd remember them. So he goes off back to New York, and I stick around another bunch of years here, doing my gigs, and I go back, and by then he's got some students, but for the life of me, I don't know how he was living, because I don't know if there was a grandmother account or the sister and brother-in-law. I actually knew up in Nyack, New York, the bartender who was married to his sister, this guy Jeff. And they had split up by then. Jeff was seeing somebody else, and his sister, what's her name? ARLENE Sorenson was dating another guy. And I said, why don't you go live with your sister upstate New York, up above Nyack? I think it was Haverstraw or Spring Valley. And then I don't know, I felt like, there was no room in the apartment. I had moved in with my mother and father when I was 38, imagine. Ed was already 41. We're both back in Long Island. I said to my mom, I said, too bad we don't have another room. We'll put this guy in here. She says, oh, Joseph, he would be wonderful, but there's no room, honey. I said, I know. So he started to go upstate, and this son that came from Jeff and his sister, that they had brought up, loved them, and was, I understand from the sister, the kid was tragically taken back from the death of Ed, But I met him in '86, stayed with him that whole summer, and he went back. Maybe he was here about 6-7 months, and I only got one recording, and I felt that I got a masterpiece here, even though it's all over the place, and I'm not really a jazz fanatic like he is, but I kept up with him. I gave him the chords he needed. I felt good that I had sat down with this guy. And what he had going on in Long Island was strange. He says, man, I said, well, he'd call me in Whitestone. You coming out tonight? We're jamming. And I drive all the way out to the island. And there was a few places on the South Shore, the real seedy area, And we'd go in there and jam these 3-chord blues, and then one standard, and sit at the bar. And he was real hyper, when he wasn't on the stuff. He was really talkative and communicative, but I've seen him in both conditions, and I said to myself, how does he pay the rent? And then he told me he was 3 months behind. The landlord was letting him slide. You have to go upstairs to his apartment. It was heartbreaking, and he had the 2 guitars. He had to sell one.
You see, that's, now as kind of an adult looking back, I wouldn't see the signs because I was only a kid, and it was like he was never, I only saw him in that kind of relationship as student, teacher. But when I got older in college, that was more like we got to talk a little bit more, but it was only for that brief, kind of 2-month period before I went back to school, and then that's when I, lost touch. But Yeah, he was great. I mean, did he ever play that? The one thing I wish I regret I didn't learn from him is he knew a really nice chord melody yesterday. Like I don't know if he came up with it himself or he learned it from someone else, but it was just like a nice he played yesterday chord melody right up the neck, and it was like beautiful. And like I never like it was before I was really into the jazz, and I was like, damn, I wish I asked him how to play that.
I have something that I remember playing with him. I don't know where you forget where you get stuff from, and you find out that
Right.
you find out it wasn't yours at all. It was somebody else. But that's what people are. They're eclecticism of many things.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you for instance. I was living in Whitestone on 150th Street and 14th Avenue in summer of '76. This guy, Pat Polisi, was taking lessons with a guy named Joe Monk.
Uh-huh.
Joe Monk was a phenomenal guitar player. I got a CD of his here. He only cut one CD in '62 at Club 40 in Long Island. But
Okay.
I went in, this is the only time I really took lessons that made sense. I had taken lessons earlier, but I quit everybody. They just didn't have it. They'd show me nothing. Everybody reading music. I got sick of it.
Right.
Never
right.
got one riff off these guys. I don't want to mention their names either.
No, that's right.
Two guys preceded Joe Monk. When Joe Monk came in, he wrote out these chord melodies from which I would memorize. I'm memorizing an arrangement.
Uh-huh.
And Ed was very impressed about that, and that's how come I could keep up with him. Then he'd show me like chord scales, like C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7. And, you chord ba 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 ba. He says each one of those has to have a chord. Then I'd advance that way. Then I'd show him one of my Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley riffs, and we were getting along real good. But he was taking lessons with Billy Butler or something. And
Yeah, that name I can't think.
I'll come up with it and I'll email it to you. But he was saying the same thing I was saying. He's saying after a while you would go in and you'd learn all these arrangements and read the music, and then you'd ask him like, how do you play a riff over an 8/13 chord? And the guy who could do it, both teachers, mine and his, would refuse to show us. So we both quit. I said, Ed, did you ever have this trouble? He said, exactly, man. It's like they don't want to give up. They don't want to give up the gold.
Yeah, and that's I don't get it. That like I don't. I love to learn from everybody. So like, yeah, people are very like protective of their they think they got like some secret, right? So they don't want to share. But like, I think it's great because what happens is like say you show me a riff that like your riff from whatever, I play it and I might not play it exactly the same because like I didn't really get it. But then you might be like, oh man, like that was kind of good. That was cool. That wasn't what I did, but and like that's how I would learn from him or like a bunch of people I met in school or just like jamming with some guy. You kind of take a little bit, like you said, from each person. You take it and then you make it your own. But listen, Joe, you're like a kindred spirit here. I really appreciate the time. Like maybe we could stay in touch. I'll shoot me an email once in a while. I'll look at your YouTube videos and stuff that you put up. But I could talk about Ed. Like you know him a lot longer, better than I did. But I could talk all day because like that was like a great time of my life. He's the one who got me like I loved music before, but that kind of I didn't go into that field, but like it's always like that's my thing, like my hobby. I don't golf. I don't do any of that other stuff. Like I'm not an exercise guy. Like I just like to pick up the guitar and kind of just noodle around, play. I'm not in a band anymore, but I would love to kind of keep the conversation going. I'll listen to some of your stuff.
Yeah, Eddie. I found when I went to go see Lloyd Chiat, who had moved his shop around the corner from Gardner Street in Hollywood onto Sunset, right around the corner. He said, "Hey, have you ever heard from Ed anymore?" I said, "No, you know him better than me. You grew up with him."
Yeah.
And then Lloyd looked at me. He says, "Joey, I got this strange feeling." I said, "I know the rest of that sentence. You think he's gone?
Yeah.
You think he's gone?" I think so. He was working in Long Island City, taking the train from Bayside. He had an apartment on Bell Boulevard in Bayside. He's taking a train to being a dispatcher for a cab company, Yellow Cab, out of Long Island City, where you were born. That's what his sister told me. Once he died and I got the email and investigated with the sister, Arlene, she said, yeah, he was doing real good. And I said, well, what happened? And I don't know, he had one of those nights where he went back on the stuff and they found him 3 days later. They estimated he didn't make it to work that Monday. And he had shot up and died in 200-something Street off of Northern Boulevard in Bayside. So that's not the way I want to talk about him. I want to think about other things. But you know, I just had to tell you what had happened. That's what happened to him.
Well, I appreciate you telling me, but like I'm with you. I'm gonna remember him as the guy that you described playing and you know, just kind of making good music and kind of all that stuff.
Yeah, Eddie Money was a friend. I had met Eddie Money too. Eddie Money was a complete drunk. When I met him in the studio with Lloyd, and he said hello to me, he didn't even look me in the eye. He said, hey, how you doing, man? I know Eddie Sorenson and your buddy Lloyd here. And Lloyd was standing right there in the studio. And so Eddie Money did go to that. He did go to that wedding. He did go to that wedding, you know.
That I never. I heard. I know Ed always said, like, you know, Eddie was the guy. You know, he had, I guess, the drive to kind of make it big and stuff, but he was like, you know, the bands that he was in with him growing up, he was like, you know, all the musicians were super talented. He's like, he had the personality, but he wasn't like the guy to kind of...
No, he was a singer. He's an actor. Singers are actors. It's very rare you find the whole package like Chuck Berry, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Jimi Hendrix. That's the complete package. Even Sinatra and Crosby were actors because they just sang. They didn't write anything. Presley didn't write anything. Eddie Money didn't write anything. But listen, we're going to keep in touch, and excuse my voice, I blew it out singing all day doing Elvis.
Okay.
But just email me your address and stuff. I'll try to find some stuff here, okay?
Yeah, look, I'll do the same here, and I'll definitely every once in a while I'll drop you a note. And yeah, I would love to stay in touch with you because it's just, you know, I love hearing the stories, and I love that you kind of made a career of doing music, man.
Yeah, you know, Joe Monk showed me stuff on guitar, and he wrote out things. He lived in Massapequa, but he worked in Great Neck above a bar. He was another one. He was another one with a bottle and drinking and smoking cigarettes. And you know, I learned from the guys that really, you know, had troublesome ways of thinking. I don't have those things. I'm not into that. I'm not into hooking on to things. Good. You know, I'm into, like, you know. But I grew up with all the guys with the needles and the LSD trips, and you know. Yeah. But it's all right. It's all right. They have something we don't have. They have a mystical thing that they want to get out of here. They've done what they had to do. It's got to be respected. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but look,
no, I agree. I agree.
It's a weird way of looking at it. But look, we'll keep in touch. Send me anything you got. Like if I could hear it, if you can make it heard on the internet.
I got I think I digitized my practice tape. Now, don't forget, a lot of it's like a 9-year-old kid.
It's all right.
So like, it's not, but it's just. I'll send you at some point. I'll find it, and I'll maybe I put it in like Dropbox or something because the file may be big, and you could just kind of, you know, you could just like listen to it again. Like you every once in a while you'll hear them, but it's more like formative stuff. Nothing like. You know, it's just like scales. It's just like it's the stuff like you would teach a kid learning guitar. You know,
it's all right. I just want to hear his voice and your voice talking. That's what the whole thing's about.
Sure.
All right, man. Sure. Happy New Year to you, and call any time. All righty. I got your number here, the 509.
Yeah, this is my work cell. What I'll do is when I drop you my address, I'll give you my personal cell because that phone, the battery died, so I called you from the work cell. So I'll give you the better one to call on.
See what you could do about those. I'd like to hear the scales and all that. That must have been great, man.
Yeah, I will get it to you before the you know, but latest by next week.
That's all right.
Promise.
Do what you got to do. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Joe.
Take care.
Nice meeting you.
Where are you in Jersey? Whereabouts?
So I'm I'm in Plainsboro, New Jersey. It's kind of like in the middle of the state. It's near Princeton.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I'm about an hour from Philly, and I'm an hour from Manhattan. But I grew up on Long Island, Nassau County, South Shore. So that's where I grew up. But I was born in Long Island City and lived there a couple years before we moved out to the island. So,
All right, man.
That's my story.
That's good. I'm glad you, like me, you're reminiscing about things that you wish you had partaken more in. That's what I have all these tributes out there. Look up Joe Nania, Hollywood Joe, tribute to this guy, tribute to this girl, tribute. They were all dead. He died when and people say, "Oh, I was taking pictures, photographs in 1969," and people were telling me I was crazy in Whitestone. And I showed them these pictures later in life, and they said, "Oh, I'm so glad you did that, man." And they're crying. I said, "You were calling me an idiot back then." So I started. I got that from my father. Who had put look up Hollywood Joe CDs at CD Baby. You could hear Christmas presents being opened on Christmas 1957 in Flushing by Northern Boulevard, Sanford Avenue. We got everything. We'll talk later, man.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Take care, Joe.
Bye-bye, Michael.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was Michael LeGrand, a friend of Eddie Sorenson's from long ago. You wanted to know more about Eddie.